She said she was protecting property values. What she was really protecting was her free rent. 6 months. That's how long I had been overseas closing a business deal I'd worked toward for years. My mansion sat exactly as I left it, fully secured. Taxes paid, utilities automated, and monitored by a 24/7 security system. Or at least, that's what I believed as I turned onto my quiet, tree-lined street just after sunset. Instead of the peaceful return I imagined, I was greeted by flashing red and blue lights, reflecting off my front gates. 2 police cruisers were parked in my driveway. For a moment, I thought there had been a break-in. My stomach tightened as I stepped out of my car. Before I could even reach the gate keypad, the front door of my house opened, and out walked Karen. HOA Karen. Perfectly styled hair, pastel cardigan, clipboard in hand like she owned the place. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't confused. She looked comfortable. That's him, she told the officers, pointing directly at me as if I were the intruder. I actually laughed at first, thinking this had to be some absurd misunderstanding. "Officers, this is my home," I said calmly, pulling my keys from my pocket. But Karen cut me off. "He hasn't lived here for months," she declared. The property was clearly abandoned. The HOA voted to secure it for the safety of the community. Secure it? The officer glanced between us. "Sir, she claims she has authorization to be here." Authorization? From who? That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The porch lights had been replaced. The landscaping looked freshly trimmed, but not by my contractor. And when Karen casually reached into her purse and pulled out a key, it wasn't mine. She had a spare. And judging by the way she stood in my doorway, she had been using it. Karen didn't hesitate. With the confidence of someone who had rehearsed this speech, she stepped forward and told the officers that my mansion had been visibly abandoned. For months, she claimed packages had piled up, lights were off for extended periods, and no one had seen me in the neighborhood. According to her, concerned residents complained that an empty luxury property in a gated community could attract crime and lower surrounding values. She said the HOA had no choice but to intervene. I stood there stunned as she spoke about my home like it was some neglected foreclosure. The reality: every bill was paid automatically. Landscaping was scheduled. Security cameras monitored every angle of the property. Just because I travel for work didn't mean I forfeited ownership. She was only protecting the community. One officer repeated, reading from what looked like printed HOA emails Karen had handed him. She had come prepared. Karen crossed her arms and gave me a tight smile. "We attempted to contact you," she insisted. No response. The board voted unanimously to enter and secure the residence under emergency bylaws. Emergency bylaws. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the one document that mattered most. The deed. My name. Clearly printed. I showed them the property tax receipts. Paid in full. Then I opened my phone and pulled up live access to my security system. The cameras were still operational, except for the interior ones that had been manually disconnected 3 weeks earlier. That wasn't securing a home. That was moving in. The officers' expressions shifted slightly. Karen's smile faltered for just a second. Because the truth was simple. No HOA vote overrides private ownership. And no concerned neighbor gets to declare a mansion abandoned just because the owner travels. What she called protection looked a lot more like possession. That night, after the officers made it clear the situation was a civil matter pending verification, I went straight to my office and pulled every HOA document I had saved over the years. If Karen claimed there had been an emergency vote, I wanted to see it in writing. Within minutes of logging into the community portal, I noticed something strange. There was a meeting listed from 3 months ago titled Special Session, Property Compliance Review. I had never received notice of it. I searched my inbox. Nothing. No certified letter. No email. No posted notice on my door. According to the HOA bylaws, homeowners were required to be notified at least 10 days before any meeting that involved enforcement action. Yet somehow, a decision about my property had been made without me. I requested the meeting minutes. What I received the next morning was almost laughable. The emergency session consisted of 4 board members, Karen included, who claimed my extended absence posed a risk of structural neglect and potential vandalism. There was no inspection report, no contractor assessment, no legal consultation, just Karen stating that the house appeared unoccupied and suggesting the HOA temporarily assume oversight. Oversight, buried halfway down the document, was the most telling line. Motion passed to enter property for inspection and secure premises if necessary. No specific evidence, no timeline, no vote count breakdown, just a vague motion that somehow translated into Karen living in my home. The deeper I looked, the more it unraveled. One board member had resigned a week later. Another had noted concerns regarding liability. In a follow-up email, this wasn't a unanimous, well-structured emergency decision. It was a rushed power grab dressed up as community protection, and Karen had positioned herself right at the center of it. Karen truly believed calling the police would intimidate me. She stood there with her clipboard and carefully printed emails, acting as if the flashing lights in my driveway were proof that she had the upper hand. But what she didn't know was that, before I ever stepped onto the property, my phone had already reconnected to my home's external security system. The perimeter cameras had never gone offline, while she confidently told the officers that she had only secured the house. I quietly opened my security app and began scrolling through recorded footage. There it was clear as day. Karen entering my front gate multiple times over the past several weeks. Not with contractors, not with inspectors. Alone, carrying grocery bags, suitcases, decorative plants. That wasn't oversight. That was occupancy. I showed the officers the timestamps. One clip even captured her directing a furniture delivery truck into my driveway. Another showed her instructing someone to disconnect 2 interior cameras near the main hallway. The officer's posture shifted immediately. "Ma'ams," he asked carefully, "do you have documentation authorizing you to reside here?" Reside. Not secure. Reside. Karen's composure cracked just slightly. She insisted she was maintaining the property to prevent deterioration. But maintenance doesn't include redecorating the foyer. It doesn't include changing light fixtures or installing personal Wi-Fi equipment, which I had already noticed on my network scan. Then came the final blow. I pulled up the property tax record and proof of continuous insurance coverage.
These documents give me
active,
full access. You must
fully
comply now.
paid,
Ma'am, I need to
legally
verify this with dispatch
protected.
first.
There's no
There was
time.
I
no
understand, but I have a
abandoned
procedure.
property
This
status.
is the footage
No
from the
municipal
incident.
notice.
Let me see. That's
No
clear evidence.
foreclosure.
I'll radio
The
it in now.
officers stepped
Good,
aside
hurry.
to confer quietly. Karen had expected applause for being a vigilant HOA hero. Instead, she was suddenly
What's this
being
about,
questioned
officers?
about
Sir,
unlawful
we need you to
entry
come with us.
and
It's not a
possibly
request,
something
sir.
much worse.
All right.
By the end of the week, the entire tone of the neighborhood had shifted. What started as Karen standing confidently in my doorway had turned into certified letters, legal filings, and an emergency HOA meeting that she was no longer controlling. Once my attorney formally reviewed the so-called emergency vote, it became painfully clear that the board had exceeded its authority in a way that exposed the entire association to massive liability. The official demand letter went out within 48 hours. It cited unlawful entry, trespassing, interference with property rights, and unauthorized modification of a privately owned residence. It also demanded full documentation of who had access to my home, who authorized the key duplication, and who approved disconnecting my interior security cameras. Suddenly, this wasn't a neighborhood dispute, it was a legal crisis. Other homeowners began asking questions. If the HOA could declare my mansion abandoned simply because I traveled for business, what stopped them from doing it to anyone? Word spread quickly that Karen had moved personal belongings into my house. That detail alone shattered her narrative of temporary security oversight. At the emergency board meeting, attendance tripled. The remaining board members looked visibly uneasy as my attorney calmly explained that HOAs do not have ownership rights over occupied private property. Regardless of absence, the vote that Karen had relied on was procedurally defective and legally unenforceable. Within days, she was removed from her position pending investigation. But it didn't end there. The HOA's insurance carrier was notified. A formal complaint was filed, and the association, facing potential damages and legal fees, began negotiating quietly. Karen thought she was protecting property values. Instead, she triggered a legal battle that could cost the community far more than my mansion was ever worth, and her reputation was the first thing to collapse. If you love crazy HOA drama like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what happens next.